Welcome. I am Mother Reece, and I am part of a group of the mothers that are interested in and work with story. And story is such an interesting healing aspect to work with, because if you think about story, it can literally be woven in any possible way. You can have one story and infinite endings, infinite beginnings. So story is a very interesting area to work with. And the way that we look at it is like most of the things that the mothers do on different levels, many levels. You can look at story from just the individual. So you look at the story of their life. You might look at the story of the issue or the problem that they have and that they are coming to see you with. You might look at them as part of a larger story. You may look at the story as something that has been concocted to cover something else, which is working as a protection for that person or for somebody else. You might look at story as something that is not even planned, not even set, that they are just working on as they go. So that's one aspect of story, and there are, as we said, many layers of that. Included in that is the situation that occurs for everybody, where you have your story and your parents have their story, have siblings and so on, and you are part of their story, they are part of your story, but the stories will never be the same. They will always have some sort of difference, some other thought, some other remembrance, some other expression. So even there you can see story is very interesting. And being able to look at the story and lay all of the parts down and then try to pluck the similarities, try to put the story together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle that has been set, and then the story is no longer suitable, so the story needs to be lifted up and pulled apart and then reset into a new jigsaw with perhaps new pieces, getting rid of some old pieces. So story for us is a terribly interesting possibility. Story also includes the telling of stories. So sometimes for people there is therapeutic benefit in an actual relaying of a story. That story can be based on truth, it can be made up, it can be completely unique to them, or it can be something that has been brought from the beyond to them. Stories like that already exist in human culture. You see all the myths and the legends. These stories were designed to either give hope, courage, to teach lessons, to nourish communities and so on. So story has been part of human culture for a very long time, and it's because of that that we look at story as part of the individual's culture. The story has been around for as long as there have been natural phenomena in the environment. There has been story, and because of that, humans always are creating story. How do we use story then to heal? How is that something that we can use? As we said, you can use stories to actually tell somebody a story, and they can learn from that and expand. We do use that, but one of the main ways that we use story is, as we've said, looking at people and their story. So we might look at their life story or lives story. We might look at just the story of the specific issue that they have, that they want to talk about. By looking at the story in that, and when we say that, we're not saying that the story is fiction, that it's not true, not at all. We're just using the word story to actually describe what we are getting out of the person, what we are seeing, and then what that is being created, how that is being created. So we look at somebody themselves, we might look at their issue, we will look at all aspects that feed into their story. And we open that out, as we said, and we look at all of the parts. We look at all of the parts of the jigsaw. And you will often find in this situation where there is a jigsaw that one of the parts, or two or three or four, they don't quite sit in. They actually sit up because they haven't quite fitted into this story. And that's where we will go. We will pick those points and we will start to investigate further into those points. And we might find that that jigsaw that that person has in their puzzle actually doesn't belong to them. It belongs to another puzzle, another story. And we might investigate that to the point where we can take it back to where it belongs and free that person up to fill that part of the jigsaw, that part of the story with their own energy, their own desires, and their own needs, not something that has been placed on them. So story is, as we said, a terribly interesting avenue of healing. And it's much underused in the modern world, explicitly. It is used implicitly. For example, if you go to a psychotherapist, or if you go to a doctor, or even a tarot card reader, they will ask for why are you there? And then they might want background information. That's the story. The difference between them using that information and us using it is that they will focus very specifically on their area of expertise, and they will take from what you've given them, and they will not make it fit, but they will make their modality fit into that story and pull apart and deal with what their modality can deal with. The difference for us is that we see the story as complete, even if there are parts in it, as we said, of the jigsaw that sit up and we need to take them back. We see that as complete, and so we have to work on the whole thing. We can't just pick a strain and go that way. We can't just focus on one thing. We do focus on one thing, but we make sure that when we come back, we then look at the whole picture again, the whole story. Because the story really is the individual. That's what the story is. The story is the individual. The person walking around is the story. And so just to work on one part of that really isn't helpful. You must work on the whole story. So sometimes we might say to you, this is what we see, we're going to look at it from this point, but this is really affecting you in another area, your emotional strengths, your physical body, and we might say we're going to deal with it here, but it would be very helpful for you if you got support from this area over here, somebody over here. So for us it's a very complete picture. We hope that our look at the human and the healing possibilities through story excite you as much as they excite us. We hope that we have taken you to a point where you see yourself differently. You see yourself as a complete picture as a complete story where the endings are infinite, the beginnings are infinite. Even if the beginnings have already occurred, they can be looked at and made different, developed, enveloped. We hope that you see that as much as we see it. And if it interests you to speak to us further about your story, please feel free to contact us. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.